The abandoned continent lay tens of millions of miles away from the fire spirit continent, and at this moment, two terrifying fiery auras, as if surpassing the very heavens and earth, had already spread across the land. Boom, boom. The sound of a massive explosion resounded through the sky, and at the center of the continent, the terrifying heat melted an entire mountain range into white lava. This scene of destruction was merely the prelude to a terrifying clash. In midair, the fire spirit ancestor stood suspended. Behind him were 5,000 fire spirits in formation, while facing him stood a man in black robes, his expression calm. This man, with his handsome appearance, was none other than Xiao, who had made a 4-move agreement with the fire spirit ancestor. Although Xiao was well prepared, he knew exactly what kind of being the fire spirit ancestor was. The latter had survived since the era of the World Destruction War, and had reached the heavenly supreme level over 10,000 years ago. Xiao dared not underestimate the fire spirit ancestor's 4 moves, but at the same time, he believed he possessed the strength to prevent the fire spirit ancestor from even looking at him. Seeing that Xiao was ready, the fire spirit ancestor suddenly took a step forward. Immediately, an immense surge of heavenly and earthly spiritual power erupted from his body, rapidly gathering above him. At this moment, the fire spirit ancestor had pushed his spiritual power to its absolute limit, and the next strike would be the strongest he could unleash. At the heavenly supreme level, ordinary divine techniques were practically useless unless one possessed extraordinary techniques like the primordial divine canon or the dragon divine canon. Thus, the fire spirit ancestor's attack was a simple yet overwhelming force. A colossal fiery seal, about several 100,000 feet in size, formed purely from condensed spiritual power. Boom, boom. The enormous fiery seal blotted out the sky as it descended toward Xiao. The fire spirit ancestor did not call upon the power of the 5,000 fire spirits behind him. This was a purely spiritual force-based attack. Yet, even without external support, the strength of this fiery seal was enough to make any expert below the upper heavenly supreme feel the threat of death. Xiao, too, could sense the terrifying power contained within the fiery seal. Now then, how will you, a being not yet at the upper heavenly supreme level, block my strike? As the massive fire seal descended toward Xiao, the fire spirit ancestor casually placed his hands behind his back. If Xiao could not withstand this first strike, there would be no chance to block the next 3. Just as the fire spirit ancestor finished speaking, he saw Xiao's gaze slowly condense. Then, a wave of spiritual power, almost reaching the upper heavenly supreme level, erupted from Xiao's body, surging like an endless ocean. It was as if an infinite black hole was releasing everything it had devoured. The power Xiao released exceeded the fire spirit ancestor's expectations. In a certain sense, it was a force that should not exist. Normally, when a lower heavenly supreme approached the upper heavenly supreme level, they would encounter a barrier preventing further growth. Reaching this barrier would make one the strongest below the upper heavenly supreme. However, once crossing this threshold, a practitioner's strength would surge exponentially. This gap between the peak of the lower heavenly supreme and the upper heavenly supreme was an insurmountable chasm. No practitioner could cultivate within it, only surpassing it and experiencing a sudden and immense increase in power. But Xiao's spiritual power had strangely surpassed the peak of the lower heavenly supreme, leaving only the slightest distance from the upper heavenly supreme. Surpassing that minute distance would mean only a slight increase in strength. Could it be that Xiao had already transcended the dimensional shackles of cultivation? Just as the fire spirit ancestor marveled at this, Xiao, facing the terrifying fiery seal descending from the sky, remained utterly composed. The fire spirit ancestor's spiritual attack had not exceeded his expectations. Slowly, Xiao raised his right hand, clenched his 5 fingers into a fist, and then blasted forward. Xiao's punch was similarly devoid of any technique, just pure spiritual force. As he threw the punch, the vast spiritual power surging from his body immediately condensed into a gigantic fire fist, 10,000 feet in size. Boom, boom. The enormous fire fist, containing slightly less power than the fiery seal, shot into the sky with a destructive force, charging toward the fiery seal. The collision between the two destructive forces erupted in the heavens. Before they even made contact, the clash of their auras caused the surrounding space to collapse. Then, a blinding explosion of fire radiated down from the sky, carrying a heat so intense that it would make any lower heavenly supreme expert tremble in fear. The fire fist and fire seal finally collided with a thunderous roar. This was a pure clash of spiritual power between two experts at the level of upper heavenly supreme. However, the shockwaves that swept outward revealed why the fire spirit ancestor had chosen this desolate continent, one that had been abandoned for tens of thousands of years, as the battlefield. For a clash of this magnitude was enough to directly annihilate all life within a million-mile radius. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The sky, enveloped in dazzling flames, began to rain down fire, and when everything finally settled, a vast void area of over 100,000 feet appeared in the sky. The edges of this void had been smoothed, the space there seemingly melted, while the interior was suffused with scorching spiritual power. Xiao Yin and the fire spirit ancestor stood on opposite sides of the void area, both with calm expressions. Xiao Yin had already blocked the fire spirit ancestor's first attack, and the fire spirit ancestor had anticipated this outcome. If Xiao Yin couldn't even block his first move, the fire spirit ancestor felt he might have overestimated him. Heh, this is indeed interesting. You're even stronger than I expected. The fire spirit ancestor chuckled after Xiao Yin blocked the first strike. Though he had anticipated that Xiao Yin would be able to withstand his first move, he hadn't expected Xiao Yin to, like himself, achieve such a feat purely through the immense power of his spiritual energy. This clearly indicated that, in terms of spiritual power, Xiao Yin wasn't much weaker than the fire spirit ancestor. Fire spirit ancestor, I've already blocked your first strike. Please show me your second move. Xiao Yan's gaze swept across the void area formed by the power of the fire, landing on the fire spirit ancestor as he spoke coolly. His posture was one of calm confidence, as if he could face any storm and block it with his own body. It was a kingly presence, one that could shine and protect a realm. Heh, don't rush. That first move was just a warm-up. The next one will determine how I see you. The fire spirit ancestor replied with another smile. Is that so? Then after warming up, you should now go all out, Xiao Yin said. Naturally, this next move will be my full strength. But I must warn you, it won't be anything like the first. If you surrender now, you may avoid the coming danger, the fire spirit ancestor warned. Heh, fire spirit ancestor, as the ancestor of a spirit clan, I think you can skip the unnecessary chatter and just make your move. I still stand by what I said. Xiao Yin responded, I'll take on every move you throw at me. Very well. Since your mind is set, I will show respect for your decision. The fire spirit ancestor's deep voice echoed as his expression grew serious. Xiao Yin then saw a golden plate etched with fire runes materialize in the fire spirit ancestor's hand. With the appearance of the golden plate, Xiao Yin immediately sensed a strange fluctuation, as the plate gradually connected to the very pulse of the heavens and earth. The golden plate was clearly a heavenly artifact. The fire spirit ancestor made a few simple hand seals, and the golden plate soared into the sky, merging into the void. A massive, faintly visible golden plate expanded in the sky above them. The golden plate grew to a size of over 100,000 feet, and upon it, thousands of unlit golden candles were arranged. As the plate expanded, the 5,000 fire spirits behind the fire spirit ancestor seemed to be summoned. They surged toward the golden plate, each landing on one of the candles, igniting them. The sight was both familiar and astonishing to Xiao Yin. It was like when he used the heavenly flame square to summon all the fires of the heavens, except now the square was transformed into a golden plate, and the pillars were replaced with candles. The sheer number of flames in use was something Xiao Yin had never seen before. Just as Xiao Yin was stunned, the fire spirit ancestor's faint laugh reached his ears. Heh, this technique was learned from the ancient Emperor Flame, and then modified by me. Now, let me see how you plan to block this one. On the immense golden plate, thousands of candles were lit by the fire spirits. At the same time, the fire spirit ancestor's voice echoed across the entire desolate continent. Xiao Yin then saw that the power of the thousands of fire spirits on the golden plate seemed to be drawn by some strange formation, gradually converging toward the center of the plate. There, a fire wheel, 100 feet in diameter, appeared, radiating a dazzling light. The fire wheel at the center of the golden disc gathered the power of thousands of fierce flames, and the terrifying heat made it appear almost identical to the brilliant sun in the sky. This was a force that even experts who had reached the upper heavenly supreme level would feel uneasy about. However, seeing this scene, Xiao Yin let out a sigh of relief. He had initially thought that the power of the thousands of fire spirits would merge in a pattern similar to the flame fusion chapter, and if that were the case, the combined strength of the thousands of fire spirits would be so powerful that even a perfected Earth Supreme would turn pale in the face of it. Fortunately, Xiao Yin now realized that the fire spirit power condensed by the golden disc did not have the fusion properties of the flame mantra. Although still stronger than simple power stacking, this was merely the result of the golden disc's formidable nature as a heavenly artifact. Clearly, the fire spirit ancestor had not cultivated the flame fusion chapter. If you want to compete with multiple fire powers, let me see how much your golden disc can outperform my heavenly flame square, Xiao Yin said casually. A dazzling fire symbol immediately appeared at the center of his brow. Then, a white light shot out from his body, spreading into the air behind him. In the end, a massive white heavenly flame square, spanning 100,000 feet, appeared. Having integrated other flames into it, the heavenly flame square had become even more formidable than the previous heavenly flame square. The 36 enormous stone pillars standing on it each had a flame Xiao Yin had refined rising from them. Xiao Yin's 36 flames were about to clash with the fire spirit ancestor's 5,000 flames. Although the former's flames were 100 times fewer, each of Xiao Yin's flames was powerful enough to rank in the top 50 of the 100 million flames ranking, with several of them even in the top 10. In contrast, the fire spirit ancestor didn't possess any super heavenly flames in the top 10. In this battle of flames, Xiao Yin represented quality, while the fire spirit ancestor represented quantity. Heh, what a grand spectacle! The fire spirits at the top of the heavenly flame square said as they looked at the 5,000 flames on the golden disc across from them. Among them, the void-swallowing flame was the first to express surprise. Damn, is the fire spirit ancestor really going this big? The pure lotus demon flame was also startled by the spectacle on the other side. Haha, this is so satisfying. Let's figure out how to shoot the hell out of him. The Moro divine flame was quite excited. This quantity, is he crazy? The bone spirit cold flame cursed. Suddenly, facing 5,000 fire spirits, the many fire spirits on the heavenly flame square were clearly taken aback. However, at this moment, Xiao Yan's command echoed from the front. Flame fusion, heavenly spanning ruler. Upon hearing Xiao Yan's command, all the fire spirits had no choice but to brace themselves. They leapt from the stone pillars on the square and transformed into their fiery forms. In that instant, the originally white heavenly flame square became a dazzling array of colors. Each of the 36 fire spirits erupted with their respective flame powers, and these powers wildly gathered on the heavenly flame square, eventually forming a heavenly spanning ruler, about 100 feet in length. The energy carried by the ruler was extremely terrifying, nearly matching the fire spirit ancestor's fire wheel. The true terrifying aspect of the flame fusion technique was now on full display, and this was the first time Xiao Yin had summoned a heavenly spanning ruler formed by such a number of fused flames. Whoosh! As Xiao Yin condensed the heavenly spanning ruler with the power of 36 flames, the fire spirit ancestor struck first. The brilliant fire wheel, formed by the fusion of 5,000 fire spirits, tore through the void and appeared right before Xiao Yin. At that moment, Xiao Yan's gaze narrowed slightly, and a low voice rang out from his mouth. Destruction heavenly spanning ruler, go! Boom! With Xiao Yan's deep command, the heavenly spanning ruler in the back transformed into a beam of light, piercing through the sky toward the oncoming fire wheel. The collision between the two was not as grand as the first move's spiritual energy, but the destructive aura they carried elevated the battle to a whole new level. However, just as the terrifying fire wheel and heavenly spanning ruler were about to collide, Xiao suddenly saw the fire spirit ancestor's hands forming a complex seal. A vast and overwhelming force tore open a massive spatial rift tens of thousands of feet behind the fire spirit ancestor. Through that rift, Xiao saw a colossal body of destruction slowly emerging. Seeing this, Xiao expression immediately became grave. "Heh, I wasn't fighting with you just now. I plan to have you face each move one by one." The fire spirit ancestor on the opposite side noticed the seriousness on Xiao face, but he continued to change the hand seals with pride, until the terrifying fire wheel and the everlasting ruler collided in a destructive fashion. A figure that didn't belong to the 99th grade Supreme Dharma bodies emerged from the space crack behind the fire spirit ancestor. It was a destroyer, holding a fire spear, a fiery god of destruction as if from hell. As the god of destruction appeared, the fire spirit ancestor immediately gathered all his strength into the fire spear in his hand. At the same time, in the middle of Xiao and the fire spirit ancestor, the fire wheel and the everlasting ruler collided, erupting with an overwhelming destructive force that engulfed the heavens and earth. The center of the collision twisted everything to its extreme. Both the fire wheel and the everlasting ruler were shredded into pieces by the destructive power. Then, a more terrifying scene of destruction erupted. But within this region of annihilation, a massive fire spear, tens of thousands of feet long, pierced through. This was the third strike of the fire spirit ancestor, a culmination of all his power in the supreme Dharma body. Summon of 10,000 flames, return to your places. Watching the approaching fire spear, Xiao immediately prepared to act. He swiftly recalled the 36 fire flames suspended in the heavenly fire plaza back into his body. What emerged next was the brilliant Emperor Flame. The roaring Emperor Flame enveloped Xiao body. After transforming, Xiao unleashed a terrifyingly destructive physical combat technique based on the Emperor Flame. Destruction Emperor Flame Physique. The third unexpected strike from the fire spirit ancestor did catch Xiao somewhat off guard. However, he didn't think he was incapable of handling it. And since the fire spirit ancestor could immediately unleash a third strike, Xiao was fully prepared for the possibility of a fourth strike. Whoosh! The fire spear, piercing through the ever-expanding destructive region, was undoubtedly as powerful as the 5,000 fire spirits combined. But Xiao figure crossed the void, appearing directly before the fire spear. With his destruction flame physique activated to its limit, Xiao threw a full-force punch. It was a head-on clash. Boom! The destructive region that had just erupted from the fire wheel and the everlasting ruler's power barely a moment ago now exploded again, this time with even more ferocity. One side was the destructive power of the fire wheel and the everlasting ruler, while the other was the shocking collision between the destruction flame physique and the fire spear. The two destructive regions overlapped, producing even more terrifying effects. The space shattered layer by layer, and even the natural self-repair of the heavens and earth couldn't keep up with the speed of destruction. Given enough time, this annihilation might cover most of the abandoned continent. In the center of the destruction, Xiao, who was wielding the destruction flame physique, clashed head-on with the fire spear. Their powers were almost evenly matched. But at this moment, an insanely violent force began to descend upon Xiao and the fire spear. As this force, capable of crushing everything, enveloped them, Xiao threw another punch, directly halting the fire spear's advance. He then used that momentum to retreat hundreds of thousands of feet away. However, the fire spear, momentarily stalled, was dragged back into the heart of the destruction by the all-crushing force. A world-shattering explosion erupted again. The power reached a level that could heavily injure even a heavenly supreme expert. Whoosh! Xiao, who had been blasted back from the region of destruction, had now successfully blocked the fire spirit ancestor's 3 strikes. But his expression remained vigilant, because the fire spirit ancestor still had a 4th strike. Truly an unexpected opponent, to have blocked all 3 of my full-strength attacks. The fire spirit ancestor marveled at Xiao Yin, who had emerged unscathed from the destructive region. But he didn't believe Xiao Yin would be able to withstand the final strike. "You old fool, you've really fallen for it. We'll have to join forces now." The fire spirit ancestor's voice echoed through the heavens and earth. Hearing this, Xiao Yin was momentarily stunned. Because this sentence from the fire spirit ancestor was clearly not directed at him. Could it be? Suddenly, as if realizing something, Xiao Yin quickly locked his gaze on the area surrounding the fire spirit ancestor. He saw the space behind him slowly warp, and then, a figure in white robes appeared. The white-robed figure that materialized behind the fire spirit ancestor had an ancient face, but Xiao Yin had seen this figure before. Xiao Yan's gaze locked with that of the old man in the white robe, and then a surprised voice escaped Xiao Yan's lips. "Tuoshe. Tuoshe, ancient emperor." Looking at the figure of the old man in white robes that had materialized from the void and was now seated next to the fire spirit ancestor, Xiao Yan's expression changed to one of shock. His heart was undoubtedly racing in that instant. Although he had come to the Fire Spirit clan with the intention of meeting Tuoshe, Ancient Emperor, Tuoshe's appearance at this moment signified one thing. The Fire Spirit ancestor's 4th strike would involve Tuoshe, Ancient Emperor. Who exactly was Tuoshe, Ancient Emperor? He was someone who, just like Xiao Yin, had cultivated the Flame Fusion chapter, but had integrated far more fire flames than Xiao Yin himself. Of course, Tuoshe, Ancient Emperor could only be considered a fire spirit, not a human being. "Heh, Xiao Yin, is it? You're quite an unexpected person," Tuoshe, Ancient Emperor said, gazing at Xiao Yin after appearing. However, as soon as his words fell, his form began to twist, and a brilliant light that Xiao Yin was no stranger to enveloped Tuoshe, Ancient Emperor. It was the true form of the Emperor Flame. The Emperor Flame, now revealed in its true form, swirled around the fire spirit ancestor, and as a radiant fire flame symbol appeared at the fire spirit ancestor's brow, the Emperor Flame immediately came under his control. "Heh, Xiao Yin, let me make it clear beforehand. You can completely dodge this upcoming move. After all, you're a guest of my fire spirit clan. If you die here, I'll have a hard time explaining it to the Do domain," the fire spirit ancestor said, his control over the Emperor Flame firm. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan's expression darkened. The fire spirit ancestor was already an upper heavenly supreme expert. Now, with the added power of the Emperor Flame at the same level, the combined strength of the two could unleash the full power of a peak upper heavenly supreme. It was nearly impossible for him to withstand this force on his own. However, while the fire spirit ancestor had backup, Xiao Yin had prepared for this moment too. Slowly, Xiao Yin closed his eyes. His heavenly soul's voice resonated deep within the sea of heavenly soul. "Senior Sacred Flame, please lend me your strength." Before coming to the Fire Spirit clan, Xiao Yin had already made the worst possible preparations. That was why he had sought help from the primordial Sacred Flame. At that time, Xiao Yin had anticipated a full-scale conflict with the Fire Spirit clan, forcing them to use all their power to deal with him. But now, it seemed that the situation had evolved into a partnership between the Fire Spirit Ancestor and the Emperor Flame. "Heh, so you finally need my strength?" The calm voice of the primordial Sacred Flame echoed in Xiao Yan's heart after his request. Xiao Yan nodded. The Fire Spirit Ancestor's 4th move was far more terrifying than the previous 3. It would be extremely difficult for Xiao Yan to withstand it on his own. But while the Fire Spirit Ancestor had Tuoshe, Ancient Emperor's Flame, Xiao Yin had the primordial Sacred Flame. "Xiao Yin, my friend, allow me to add one more thing. My ranking on the 100 million flames ranking is already clear. The power I can give you is weaker than the strength the Tuoshe, Ancient Emperor Flame gives to the Fire Spirit Ancestor." The primordial Sacred Flame's voice continued in Xiao Yan's mind. "So how will you make up for the remaining gap?" "There's no need for Senior Sacred Flame to worry. I have my ways to make up for that portion of power," Xiao Yan replied. "Heh, since you have a plan, I won't ask further. Take my strength and use it as you see fit," the primordial Sacred Flame said. As his words finished, Xiao felt a surge of incredibly powerful fire energy course through his body. The power was overwhelming, yet it wasn't wild. Instead, it gave him a surreal feeling, blurring the line between reality and illusion. With the primordial sacred flame's power now coursing through him, Xiao immediately activated the flame transformation chapter he had obtained from the Thousand Worlds, combining it with the flame fusion chapter. At a frantic pace, he began to merge the primordial sacred flame's power fully into his Emperor Flame. Boom! With the addition of the primordial sacred flame's power, Xiao strength, which was only a hair's breadth away from reaching the upper heavenly supreme level, surged explosively. Not only did the primordial sacred flame elevate Xiao to the upper heavenly supreme level, but it also boosted him to the mid-stage of that level. At this point, in terms of sheer spiritual energy, Xiao had surpassed the fire spirit ancestor. However, this newfound strength still wasn't enough to fully counter the combined might of the fire spirit ancestor and Tuoshe ancient emperor. Xiao still needed more power. He's gotten even stronger? The sudden surge of power from Xiao immediately caught the attention of the fire spirit ancestor on the other side. Could it be that Xiao had been hiding his true strength? It's the primordial sacred flame. Xiao body now carries his aura, the 8th-ranked flame on the 100 million flames ranking. The primordial sacred flame? Upon hearing this, fire spirit ancestor was once again surprised. Xiao already possessed the 6th-ranked true phoenix flame and the 7th-ranked refined flame, and now, he had also mastered the 8th-ranked primordial sacred flame. Adding the 10th-ranked nether fire, didn't that mean Xiao possessed 4 of the top 10 ranked flames? If it were just a matter of comparing flames, Xiao power would probably be on par with Tuoshe ancient emperor. Thousands of years ago, the primordial sacred flame was defeated by my hand. I never thought it would now fall into Xiao possession. Heh, old man, let's team up, came Tuoshe ancient emperor's voice again. Earlier, you hesitated, worried Xiao might perish under that attack. But now, he has grown stronger, and with his confidence, it seems he has his own means. Consider that a lesson for him, fire spirit ancestor said. Old man, be careful. You never know who will be teaching whom a lesson, Tuoshe ancient emperor responded. Haha, this is interesting. Let me see what kind of ability this young generation has to teach me a lesson. Fire spirit ancestor laughed, immediately unleashing all his flame powers, merging them with Tuoshe ancient emperor's flame. The two forces fused perfectly, yet fire spirit ancestor controlled them flawlessly. What materialized before him was a dazzling fire phoenix, around 100 feet in size. The phoenix radiated a terrifying heat from the emperor flame, nearly melting the surrounding space. With each flap of its wings, a cataclysmic wave of flame swept through the air. This was a destructive phoenix that even upper heavenly supreme peak experts would fear. Meanwhile, Xiao on the opposite side had also prepared for the confrontation. He summoned the Emperor Flame that had now merged with the primordial sacred flame, the fire surging from his body like a roaring tidal wave. The Emperor Flame expanded around him, forming a vast sea of flame. Gradually, it transformed into countless destruction fire lotuses, each one powerful enough that no expert below the heavenly supreme level could withstand them. Under Xiao control, thousands of these destruction fire lotuses fused together, creating a massive, 100-foot-wide version. Destruction Emperor Lotus. The temperature in the world soared to unbearable levels due to the clash of the two Emperor Flames, to the point where even Earth's supreme experts would struggle to endure. Go! With a deep voice, both Xiao and Fire Spirit Ancestor spoke simultaneously. The Phoenix of Emperor Flame and the Destruction Emperor Lotus shot forward like beams of light, colliding head-on. In that instant, a cataclysmic battle of destruction began. However, in that moment, due to the blinding light from the clash of the two destructive forces, Fire Spirit Ancestor failed to notice that after Xiao launched the Destruction Emperor Lotus, he quickly altered the seal in his hand. A murmured voice escaped Xiao lips. All flames assimilate. Emperor Flame devours. Boom. Before the words even spread, they were swallowed by a deafening explosion. The Phoenix of Emperor Flame and the Destruction Emperor Lotus collided violently, each like an Emperor of Flames, waging a battle to determine who was the true Flame King. The impact sent shockwaves that enveloped a vast area of tens of thousands of miles. Whoosh! The destructive force was so terrifying that both Xiao and Fire Spirit Ancestor retreated, moving far from the collision. Even they couldn't see what had happened at the center of the explosion, for the area had been completely obliterated. After retreating approximately 100,000 miles, they still couldn't see each other, but both could witness the destruction unfolding at the collision center. There, the Phoenix of Emperor Flame and the Destruction Emperor Lotus were locked in a fierce battle. After several breaths, when Fire Spirit Ancestor and Xiao finally glimpsed the aftermath, the former smiled while the latter's expression remained calm, as if he was preparing for something. Fire Spirit Ancestor smiled because the Phoenix of Emperor Flame, merged with his and Tuoshe Ancient Emperor's power, had initially gained the upper hand in its clash with the Destruction Emperor Lotus. However, after a few moments, the expected crushing defeat didn't happen. Fire Spirit Ancestor was perplexed as he saw the Destruction Emperor Lotus, which had been colliding with the Phoenix of Emperor Flame, growing stronger and stronger with each clash. Meanwhile, the Phoenix of Emperor Flame seemed to weaken. This trend gradually tilted the balance of victory toward the Destruction Emperor Lotus. What's going on? Fire Spirit Ancestor, now fully aware something was amiss, focused on the ongoing clash of the two destructive forces. The Destruction Emperor Lotus was assimilating and devouring the power of the Phoenix of Emperor Flame. Hundreds of thousands of miles away, Xiao gazed at the rapidly growing Destruction Emperor Lotus, while the Fire Spirit Ancestor's expression grew grim. Meanwhile, Xiao wore a faint smile. In reality, Xiao was taking a risk. He knew that relying solely on direct confrontation, even with the power of his flame force enhanced by the primordial sacred flame, would be insufficient to withstand the Fire Spirit Ancestor's final strike. Therefore, he needed to draw upon other powers. And this power came directly from the Fire Spirit Ancestor's offensive. The Destruction Emperor Lotus, in the midst of its frantic collision with the Phoenix of Emperor Flame, absorbed enough power from its opponent. Finally, it unfurled its lotus petals, triggering an explosion of catastrophic proportions in the skies above the ruined continent. Boom! The terrifying explosion spiraled like a vortex, first disintegrating the space within 100,000 miles. The shockwaves, filled with countless shards of space, spread wildly, evaporating all the mountains in their path before they could even crumble, leaving behind only blackened, scorched earth and sporadic bursts of magma from beneath the surface. As for the ancient, abandoned cities on the continent, they were completely reduced to ashes. Xiao soared into the sky, looking down at the scene of devastation below. He watched as the destructive flames nearly consumed the entire abandoned continent. The scale of the destruction was similar to what he had witnessed half a year ago in the Pill Spirit domain of the 10,000 Pills Gathering, where the sacred emperor of the extraterritorial clan had destroyed a vast area of over 1,000,000 miles. However, at that time, the white evil sacred emperor, in his prime, was said to possess power on par with that of the upper heavenly supreme. But due to some kind of restriction, he was only able to wield less than half of his strength within the Great Thousand Worlds. Meanwhile, far off in the distance, the Fire Spirit Ancestor hovered in the air, gazing at the destructive scene in disbelief. He never expected that Xiao could truly withstand the combined might of both himself and the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor. That was power comparable to the peak of the upper heavenly supreme. You old fool, looks like we have nothing more to say. Just as the Fire Spirit Ancestor was stunned by the scene before him, an Emperor Flame burst from his body, transforming into the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor dressed in a white robe. Indeed, nothing more to say. This is truly unbelievable, the Fire Spirit Ancestor remarked as he looked at the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor. Although he was surprised that Xiao had managed to withstand the first 3 attacks, it wasn't entirely beyond comprehension. But the last strike, Xiao had somehow still taken it head-on. Boom! Meanwhile, the massive wave of destructive flames continued to wreak havoc across the abandoned continent below. Fortunately, This destruction was occurring on the deserted continent, or it would have been a massacre of unimaginable scale. At least, any powerhouses below the Earth Supreme would have little hope of surviving such devastation. The scale of destruction on the abandoned continent was so massive that even neighboring continents could clearly see the crimson skies from a distance. These continents were leased by the Fire Spirit clan to other forces in the Great Thousand Worlds, and the catastrophic event on the abandoned continent immediately drew the attention of countless powerful beings from the outside world, including some Earth Supreme experts. Isn't that the Fire Spirit clan's abandoned continent? The continent that was abandoned after the end of the World War? I heard there are terrifying demons there. The Fire Spirit clan has repeatedly denied it, and even tried to rent it out at a low price, but no one is willing to go there. TSK. A continent of such size, spanning millions of miles, with rent being only 3 million supreme spiritual liquid every 5 years. Yet no one is interested? Seems like the rumors must be true. Could this scene mean the terrifying demons have been released? Could that raging fire not be the Fire Spirit clan's experts dealing with the suppressed demons? No way. The Fire Spirit clan has publicly denied the existence of any demons. I think someone is engaging in battle with the Fire Spirit clan's heavenly supreme experts, and they've chosen the abandoned continent as their battlefield. It's likely not a direct attack on the Fire Spirit clan, but rather a sparring session. The Fire Spirit clan has 3 heavenly supremes: the clan leader Fenxing, the Fire Spirit Ancestor who has been absent for thousands of years, and finally, the ancient Emperor Flame, subdued by the Fire Spirit Ancestor thousands of years ago. The Fire Spirit Ancestor has survived since the end of the World War. He should be long gone by now, right? Haha, you're overestimating the lifespan of heavenly supremes. Such matters are beyond our speculation. However, if someone is indeed challenging the Fire Spirit clan's heavenly supreme experts, they must be a person of great ambition. It's just unclear who they are. Why not go observe near the abandoned continent? We might learn something. Go ahead, but I won't. Look at the scale of the battle. The heat alone has already caused the surrounding seas to boil. A sudden shockwave would be unbearable, even for supreme experts. Then let's wait for news from within the Fire Spirit clan. The large-scale destruction seen on the abandoned continent sparked much discussion among powerful beings from surrounding continents. However, few experts below the rank of Heavenly Supreme dared to approach the abandoned continent. As a result, most chose to wait for news to spread. While the abandoned continent became the center of attention, many powerful individuals on the Fire Spirit continent were also alarmed, including the clan leader Fenxing and numerous high-ranking elders. Qin Zhantian, who had not yet left the Fire Spirit clan, was equally astonished, as they all knew who was most likely involved in the battle. It was certain that Xiao Yin and the Fire Spirit Ancestor were part of it, and based on the fluctuations of the flames, even the ancient Emperor Flame seemed to be involved. Just as Fenxing and the other elders were shocked by the destructive scene from tens of millions of miles away on the Fire Spirit continent, a voice transmission from a distant location suddenly echoed in their minds. The voice belonged to the Fire Spirit Ancestor, and the message was clear. Fenxing, along with all elders above the rank of Dimensional Supreme, must immediately rush to the abandoned continent. The Fire Spirit Ancestor's serious tone conveyed the urgency of witnessing a significant event. What could be so important that the clan leader and all the elders had to witness it firsthand? After receiving this command-like transmission, Fenxing and the other high-ranking elders immediately followed the Fire Spirit Ancestor's instructions. They tore open space fissures and hurried towards the abandoned continent at full speed. Meanwhile, in the central region of the abandoned continent, the deafening destruction had gradually subsided, but the sky remained a crimson hue, with fire-infused raindrops occasionally falling. Although the space itself was rapidly regenerating, the intense distortion meant that the area could collapse at any moment. Even those below the rank of Dimensional Supreme would struggle to survive such a collapse. The Fire Spirit Ancestor and the Tuoshe Ancient Emperor hovered in midair, their figures slightly distorted by the warped space. Yet their eyes remained fixed on the horizon. Whoosh! After a few moments, the figure they had been waiting for finally appeared, Xiao Yin. By now, Xiao Yin was much stronger than when the battle had first begun, thanks to the power of the primordial sacred flame. As for the Emperor flame power absorbed by the destruction Emperor Lotus, it was beyond Xiao Yan's ability to consume. Truly impressive for one so young. It seems we've lost this wager, said the fire spirit ancestor, cupping his hands in salute as Xiao Yan approached. No matter what, Xiao Yan had truly withstood the fourth move they had jointly executed. I'm just lucky, taking advantage of the situation, Xiao Yan responded humbly. He then turned his gaze towards the Tuoshe ancient emperor and, with a slight bow, said, Xiao Yan, the inheritor, pays respects to senior ancient emperor. Seeing Xiao Yan's respectful demeanor, the Tuoshe ancient emperor smiled faintly. When I left the inheritance on the continent of Duel, it was a casual act. After all, if I had taken all my essence energy with me, I would have effectively sealed the fate of the continent's future. But I never expected that the one who would receive my inheritance would be someone as remarkable as you. If I recall correctly, I also left behind an imperial-grade primordial pill. I wonder if that semi-finished emperor pill ended up in your hands. Senior Ancient Emperor, that imperial-grade primordial pill was used by a clan leader of the Soul Clan, helping them break through to the Do-D level. The entire continent of Do-Chi was shaken as a result. At that time, I received your inheritance to prevent the Soul Clan leader from completely dominating the continent, Xiao Yan explained. Heh, so it seems you accidentally obtained my inheritance. The Tuoshe ancient emperor chuckled. Xiao Yan also smiled. Without Zhukuan, they would never have known that the ancient emperor's inheritance was hidden on that mysterious heavenly flame square. Ultimately, Xiao Yan became the inheritor because he had the best resonance with the legacy. Buzz. As Xiao Yan and the Tuoshe ancient emperor conversed, a figure suddenly materialized in the surrounding distorted space. It was Fan Xing, who had come directly from the fire spirit continent. Buzz. 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 After Fan Xing's arrival, several dozen more figures appeared in the twisted space. These were the high-ranking elders of the fire spirit clan, summoned by the fire spirit ancestor. Each of them was at least a dimensional supreme, and their number totaled around 30. Among them, 29 were dimensional supreme experts, with 2 having reached the near heavenly supreme level. As Fan Xing and the dozens of powerful members of the fire spirit clan reappeared, they immediately scanned their surroundings. What they saw was a vast expanse of scorched earth stretching for millions of miles in every direction. Everyone inhaled sharply in shock. They hadn't expected that the battle between Xiao Yan and the fire spirit ancestor would result in a whole abandoned continent being reduced to ruins.